So I want to give a quick context about me and why I'm here and why I'm so happy to be here. I started as a mechanical engineer down in southern Germany's automotive industry, already working with humans and machine interaction as an ergonomics engineer. I then went on to research a lot about not only the manual ergonomics of how cars work, but also about the cognitive ergonomics, and went into HMI design and more into the field of creative processes. So I facilitated several creative processes that were either online in our ideation communities at Porsche, where I did a PhD research project for 3 years, where we brought up a creative tool for all the employees to exchange on their ideas. And we already found that intrinsic motivation is really what makes the quality of a creative process. And then later on at Daimler, where I was in the department for digital transformation, where we found it so relevant to have the people on board in a human-centric view to really bring forward digital transformation, not only in the product, but also in the company and in the processes as a foundation for that. And I think it's exactly this same message that I also want to bring towards you today, that a digital transformation within a product, making it a digital physical play, also requires a digital transformation within the thinking and within the mindset of everybody who's working on it. And this is where I also love so much to hear the 3 other talks, and thanks so much for bringing out how co-creation and having different perspectives coming together as a basis and a foundation for making that happen. Now, talking about digital transformation as if it's completely new. Well, of course, it has been around quite a while, and if we're looking at interactive play at Lego, which we oftentimes use as a term for combining digital and physical play, it is around quite a bit. And there is a product range already when you open up the current catalog, and this is just some examples from this year and from last year. There's a range of offerings for different different ages, down from 2+ with the Duplo train, all the way over with some connected experience like the Boost robots for 7-year-olds, all the way up to Technic models 11+. And of course there's still the Lego Mindstorms robots that are programmable robots for even older kids that are oftentimes used in schools and universities and in competitions. And I want to take you a little bit on the journey of how the design processes around these products, how do we live through them, and how can we embrace all the tech that's coming into them by at the same time staying true to a core of a play promise that we've made, and of always grounding our products in that. And of course it is inspirational, and it is also super necessary to stay relevant among kids with the digital technology. But I want to bring back the thought during all of the next slides that we're still wanting to stay within this Lego promise that I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on the next slides, but that I also want to make you aware of.
Just a clarification, by interactive play you mean digital and physical together?
Exactly.
What's the non-interactive play? That is like just that's offline play? For
example, if you buy a box and then you're not using your phone neither for the building instructions,
then
for anything.
Non-interactive playing with the
then we'll call it play.
Because it doesn't make that much sense, sorry.
I know, we're meaning interactive as in interaction media, or as we, things.
Just a clarification. Yeah. Because interactive play doesn't make any sense to me.
Because play is always interactive to you, is that why? Yeah.
Do we have non-interactive play? What is that?
I mean, you could make a role play that it would be very much probably within your brain or within yourself. I mean, it's a good, but this is a really good question. I think there will be a lot of terms, and I'm super happy to be challenged and also to bring this challenge over to my colleagues, because of course there is always going to be different understandings of that.
You're from the Lego Center for Interactive Play. I was just wondering, is there like a center for just play? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I like the provocative question. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So, any questions? I'm also happy to have them during the presentation. Okay, but so let me start taking you onto this journey with a more interactive way now, by inviting you to look at the couple of bricks that we put on each of the chairs earlier today, and instead of explaining this core of the Lego Play Promise, putting on my timer while I'm speaking, and giving you all the challenge to build a duck. And I know some of you have done that before.
Not a dog.
Not thought. But for the ones who have, maybe this time you can build a robotic duck, because that's been one of the talks we've heard before. I know maybe that's possible. For everybody else, just a duck. And I would say let's talk about this in 45 seconds from now.
44 seconds.
Yes. Okay, I already hear the brick stacking. Click, click, click. That's good. Find my timer. Okay. Okay. All right, 30. Coming together. Still see some co-creation here. Okay. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and stop. All right, now take a look at your duck, and also take a look at the ducks around you. And let us all just remind ourselves how we went there without any building instructions in the first place. That's not a duck. Maybe it's a robotic duck, huh?
I made a really hungry duck.
They're not only all different, but I already hear some people explaining or even justifying their creation and defending it against some other.
This one is diving.
into the apple pond. Okay, nice. Okay, and I think we not only see a lot of variety, a lot of creativity in these products, but I think if you look into yourself and if you reflect on how you perceive the process, I assume, even though I know many of you guys have done this before, but assume especially to the ones where you've done that the first time, perceive quite a bit of a challenge, and for maybe, what should I do? Okay, I know it's all experts in play, so it's probably relatively lower. But nevertheless, I'm very sure there was a certain pride of creation when you finally had the duck in your hand, and also when you compared it to the others, and when you shoo it around. And it is quite this pride of creation, and also, of course, embracing the uniqueness of all these different creations that we feel is such a big part of the Lego experience to the kids. And we want to bring out this pride more often, and thus building creative confidence in the kids. And this is a play promise that we've made and that we want to bring in our future products too. And I just wanted you guys to experience this at least on a little scale yourself, so that we can remind ourselves while we go through the next couple of slides of and also challenging, of course, the things that are coming up with thinking about, are we still delivering this creative confidence, and are we helping building creative confidence within the kids? Okay, so building creative confidence, I've already talked to it without putting up the slide. I've got a couple of principles of play and some learnings that I want to then elaborate on during the next half an hour to 45 minutes that show how we are trying to incorporate this into the play. And I think let me start with them one by one. One I've already teased, and this is the intrinsic motivation. And I think if we all look back at how we played, and I can at least tell how I remember playing with the Lego in my room, which usually also engaged my sister into play. Then I remember that nobody told me to play. I had that wish by myself, and I came up with that motivation by knowing about, or by slowly learning about the process. Of course, first from the building instructions, but then later on knowing, okay, I can build, I can make, and wanting to engage into this process from my own motivation. Maybe sometimes a bit with just a little a bit of additional extrinsic motivation by knowing I can show this off later on, and then maybe earning some O's and R's, but most of the part by my own motivation. Now, this is one principle of play that we're trying to focus on. The next principle of play is active engagement, and also looking back at the scene of playing, and I hope I evoke some memories in you guys too. I think we can't deny that building with our own hands and being also the creators of what's happening there, not only on these designs and the constructions, but also on the stories that happen around there, and the people that come together within our Lego world, the streets where they lead and where all the pieces are connecting. All of that we're actively making and engaging, rather than leaning back as in some other toy use or even some other media consumption. And a third principle of,
Just again, active engagement, what's the difference between active and non-active engagement?
So you could be passively engaged, for example, in watching a film or video or movie. Then you're engaged, but you're not, like you're more consuming rather than actually creating or challenging.
Okay, so it's more like hands-on.
So it doesn't only require the hands. I would argue that you could also be actively engaged by solving a puzzle, or coming up with your own script for something, or generating your story. But if you're just watching a YouTube video or binging through your favorite Netflix series, I would say that's engagement, but it's passive.
Okay, so you could build with Legos just in your mind and still be active engagement?
Yeah, I would still call that active engagement, yeah. Even though there is some additional benefits from building with your hands. The motoric and yeah. Also, it's a lot easier to share this with your brother, with your sister, when you've built it out, and they'll have a contribution to make. But so this is the second principle of play that can leverage this pride of creation, and thus foster the creative confidence. And the third one, and I think almost goes without saying, that is if we induce fun into a play, and I think most of the play comes with fun anyway, it's a lot more sticky to the kids. And of course we also commit to making toys that are fun. And we will also, I think, somehow later down when we come to discuss, also find out that sometimes fun can be one of the guiding elements in some products, while others might be maybe more educative or more relying on one of the other two principles. But this will always be part of it. Well, even though these principles of play I remember very much from our old childhood, and I can still see them today when I'm seeing my girlfriend's kids playing, or even my nephew and my niece playing. I have the feeling that it was almost a little bit slower back then, and that could be due to what's going on in some kids' lives today. And we're having some research data that shows that many of the kids have a lot of things on their schedule. One number showed us that 50% of the parents have their kids spend less than 1 hour outside. And even though playing outside is not the only play, very much like it's not always only physically playing that's active play, it's still an indicator that play gets a lot more time boxed and gets a lot more cut up into smaller chunks that are available for the kids to basically decide and design themselves. So it's a lot around scheduling activities such as sports and of course studies around, oftentimes even around or accompanying your studies at school that the kids have to do basically, and then leaving only really smaller pieces of time, very much like snack size time for things that they like to do intrinsically. And these small cut time boxes that are there for kids to design themselves, they are oftentimes, and of course technology does play a role in this, they're oftentimes filled by activities that of course fit into that, very much like watching a quick thing on YouTube, or something that they could oftentimes also lean back from after they had been very much pushed into being very hard working in a sports activity or in an activity that's around their school or their studies. And also, of course, even though I think every one of us uses the phones for a lot of things that are awesome for kids too, like preserving memories on your camera, very much like you're staying in touch with people around, being connected and social, and all of that happens on the phone, of course. But for kids, it becomes more and more hard to differentiate what is really good about using the technology and what is maybe just some passive engagement and maybe more a adult activity that fills the time. And I believe it's our responsibility to make use of the technology, because we're not getting around it. Kids are gonna want to know what's happening on the phone, what's possible with the phone. Also, there is just a lot of things that we can do with it, but it's our responsibility to leverage that for the right things and for these principles in play that we looked at, and overall towards the goal to really bring out more creative confidence in the kids. So I promise there'll be some principles, but there'll also be some learnings that we've had. And even though when we look at how can technology in play be used, we see that oftentimes technology in everyday life is used to make things easy, to order your pizza on the phone quickly, or to just do something more efficient than you've done it before. Now, technology in play oftentimes will mean that if you want to connect a phone to a product, I don't know how many of you have tried some of the products out there, and even if not, I think the story of the Cosmo has been very enlightening, of saying how you have to set this up with the right Wi-Fi and it doesn't work in a different connection. Of course, that can be quite a hard way to get there. But even though it is hard, oftentimes within this journey of solving that problem, there can be a moment that makes it even more rewarding later down the journey to having all of that done and solving all of this and building up even more creative confidence, because now I've not only built something, but I've also connected it or used technology that becomes so relevant in our world today to make this work. And then another big learning, well, the first one being about how easy this can be. Another one is that oftentimes technology today is used to gather and bring together data to change behavior. But while this is oftentimes used in advertisements and in ways that are also, and I think it was one of the big things that we took away from the last talk too, in not always perfectly ethical ways, I think we have to understand that our main learning from this can be leveraging the data to understand kids' behavior. So we're looking at the technology our first learning more on a product level of how can this help build creative confidence because it's in the product, but also on a process level for the designers and engineers around it to leverage the data to understand kids' behavior and thus making better products for them. And I want to give a bit of an example on both of these learnings with looking at Boost, a product that came out 2 years ago, and I saw it sitting out there on a table together even with the mat, and I think there was even the Smart Hub assembled. But for those who didn't have a chance to look at that, I want to bring a quick introduction and also show a video in just a minute about what it actually is. So Lego Boost has been a connected Lego brick that works together with your mostly smart tablet. Can also work with your smartphone. Just gets a little bit smaller, and that has 5 different models in it. You can build a robot, a guitar, a cat, a car manufacturing machine, and a forklift, and the main But I could probably explain a lot around it. I think the main things are told by the video that's coming up. So let me just get that started for you. So we see how there's a very graphical interface that also allows 7+ years olds to already program their robots. You saw the sensor working on the cat that detected what kind of color it had in front of it, so they would react to that color. And all of that was coded in by the kids with the help of this graphical interface that's almost like a Scratch-like software. I think we heard about that earlier today. It gives the kids the opportunity to be a programmer with a very graphical and simple interface. And even though I'm saying simple with the interface, of course it is still hard fun to get there. And we were thinking about during the process a lot, how can we make this hard fun rewarding to the kids, and how can we bring out the motivation in them so they stick through this to finally come to the moment where they have this creative confidence boost by having this final thing in their hand. And our first attempt was putting in super cool rewards and bringing out a lot of extrinsic motivators that were mostly there in the game. But we already saw in early tests, and this was before the product was out, that it put the kids into a different mindset. Rather than taking this reward as a stepstone on the ladder to then later on building the next model or the next aspect of the model and coding through the next challenge, they rather turned their attention just towards the device and tried to trick in some ways and to hack and to get these rewards quicker. And suddenly their focus turned from,
But if you're doing rewards, then it's not intrinsic, then it's extrinsic.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the mistake that was made in this very first draft and in this early stage of the development. So the key learning, and that's very true, were these extrinsic motivators. They were basically gamification mechanics. They turned their attention away from the building and eventually actually spoiled the building.
But did you try making game mechanics without extrinsic motivations?
Yes. So so our next step, was so this is why I put the very subtle question mark to that very subtle question mark to that headline. We found that this was not embracing what we wanted, but instead we wanted to have motivation through active engagement. And so our solution was not game mechanics, then or not rewards in the app, but rather have
Just want to point out, game mechanics are not the same as extrinsic motivators.
That's true. Yeah.
So just
in the way how we used it in that first.
That is totally intrinsic as well.
Yeah. So in the first version that we did, the game mechanics that we used, they were very extrinsic, and that was our fault also, so to say. Good thing that happened in a very early stage of the development, and so there was still enough time to pivot the overall story of how the kids went through this boost experience. And so our a key point in making this from bringing this from an external extrinsic motivated thing to an intrinsically motivated product was by having the robot itself calling basically through the app for help being built and being brought to life. And while you see one example here, for example, as the robot whose name is Vernie is only partly assembled, he's already got the capability to speak to the kid through the app, asking for arms, for example, to be able to finally give you a high five, or asking for tracks to being put on his feet so that he can actually move around and come towards you, and thus solve these missions. We found that this was kind of the motivators that kept kids in the loop, that kept them in the loop for building and programming. Yeah.
But isn't that really model specific? I mean, what if you collect a forklift, for example, without any eyes?
Yeah.
Ask you, could you present yourself?
Oh, sorry, I'm Thomas.
Thomas.
From Malakilde Folk High School. Who's asking?
I'm asking down here. It's just you are participating quite a lot, so I was interested in who.
Okay, I'm Thomas. Hi.
Say again.
That's really model specific. So what if the model don't have any eyes, so it's not like humanized?
Yeah,
anyway?
We definitely found that worked best with Vernie, who is the humanoid robot, and Frankie, who's the cat. We also had a similar aspect in the other two, in the other three models, but it was also less intriguing to the kids. I'm gonna show that in just a minute. That these two models were by far the best performing, and also almost to an extent that almost kept us from really progressing in this journey. Almost too much of an emotional attachment to these characters. Definitely learning that we've made. Let me elaborate a little bit more on it. So you were absolutely right. We're having these other models, Vernie and Frankie, and then of course the auto builder and the forklift thing and the guitar. And what we found, and this is where now the data helped us, and this is also where I can show that digital physical play will also mean not only bringing digital to a physical product, but also bringing digital ways of thinking to a development process, where the data helped us see that kids mostly started either building Vernie or Frankie and then were very hesitant in tearing him apart again. And that's also what qualitative research showed us. They had brought them to life, and they had built them piece by piece, and they'd helped them walk and helped them high five. And Frankie the cat can make all these cat sounds and so on. And it was very hard for the kids to later on tear out basically their core piece. And that was especially bad because we really intended to have a system not only within these 5 models, but also bring that over to other franchises. Like you'll see here, turn that down a little bit. So you can already, you see how lighthearted they take apart Vernie here. That did not happen in real life. Instead, this really rarely happened, even though it was totally not only possible to put, for example, your Ninjago dragon into a robot Ninjago dragon with the sensor and motor in it, but we even provided building instructions and helped with some code examples that kids could use. Of course, allowing them also to do their own thing. They hardly did that because what they did instead was building a relationship. They went far beyond what we intended originally. So we heard stories about kids putting on a seatbelt on Vernie in the car, or tucking him in like you see here, or making him almost become a family member like Vernie the cat. And this is why I really also like the Cosmo research that you did, and also the questions that were asked afterwards about, is there an introduction ceremony or process for bringing a new basically toy like a family member to the family? And in this case, it definitely felt like it. Now, what we've learned from this, and this is where I just want to show as an example how the digital transformation helped us a lot for going from one product generation to the next one, was we were just in the process of designing the next the next kit that was not a 5-in-1 but a 3-in-1 model experience and had missions for Star Wars robots this time. And of course there was an R2-D2, and we decided on 2 more droids from the Star Wars universe, the Gonk droid and the Mouse droid from the Imperial troops. And the idea was very much, in the beginning, was very much the same. 3 droids, and you can build one after the other to go through all the missions. But when we saw that obstacle of the kids hardly daring to really tear down the droids, we decided on a redesign, mainly due to the fact that most of the really expensive components are the smart hub, the additional motor that's in the that's going into the model, and the sensor that detects different colors and the distance of objects. And so we made a concept that that allowed you, instead of reusing the same bricks for the different models, building all models at the same time and then just swapping out the connected components, which is the smart hub with the batteries and the Bluetooth connector and the motors together with the wires and the sensor, and then kind of fiddling them into the other models and plugging them in and bringing them to life after, but still keeping the lovely R2-D2 that you've made, or the Gonk droid that has a lot of personality too. And so how this all turned out, without wanting to make this too much of an advertising, I still want to show how also this, and with the more focus on how this swapping works, what we came out then was with this Boost Star Wars droid commander. So let's take a look at that quick. So yeah, you can see there's still the building, but then the core components, and maybe you saw that with, and it's going to be shown in another scene too, could then be taken out. Some of the props, they're rebuilt like these things, but that was not a problem because the emotional attachment was a lot lower in these cases. Yeah, so you see the hub and the sensors always only in one of these models. But so I just think this is a nice example how, of course, the digital transformation happens on the product side, but also on the process side.
Sorry,
now, yeah.
You just said this emotional component was much less for these, so you said what was for?
No, so it wasn't less, but it was a lot easier to just take out the...
Oh, no, it was not the design of the pieces that made that.
No, it was the design of making it so that you can take out the core component. You could really see how, thanks Tom, how you really have to peel off all the bricks of that core component, which is that smart hub. And then, basically you'd have to tear it apart.
I thought that Star Wars was less attaching than the
Oh my God, no. We already, even though this is only in the market for a short time, and of course we will have to now look at the data that comes back from that, and also of course the interviews that we that we conduct after kids have been playing with it for a long time. But we can already see there's a lot of love. Yeah. Yeah. So no doubt. Yeah. It's just a design approach to solve that. It's now different. Yeah, and we want to continue building on that, on this system and play, and because Andreas specifically asked for, can you also show a little bit what's cooking? I just want to open up the horizon for things that can be done, and that the design teams are taking into consideration. With first of all a video from our colleague at the Creative Play Lab that they showcased at the Apple conference, that goes more into the direction of augmented reality play, which is definitely a different kind of interactive play because it's not really a physical connection, or not Just not physically connected anyway, but not really electronically connected, but taking into account the capabilities of the smartphone camera. And one of the things that, or some of the things that can be done, I think these guys visualized very well. And let's all look at this together, and then keeping in mind how does this stick true to the principles that we talked about, and how does this still also help building creative confidence within kids.
Here we have Assembly Square. It's one of our LEGO creator sets. And already has so many great details, it's awesome to play with. But wouldn't it be great if we take
And this is a concept.
Well now, with 3D object detection, we get to recognize our models and bring them to life.
Of course, this is a model that's built by after building instructions up to this point.
And just look at all of those rich details we can now bring into our sets.
I think there's more an example rather than a real play experience in this one.
It really opens up those creative play possibilities. And there's so much to do here. If you see these icons above people and objects, well, they represent missions and stories that we can explore. And with a world as rich and as immersive as this, who would want to play? So let's add a character. How about this little guy here?
I think it's also an example of a creative choice there, right? Even though, of course, it's limited within this prototype.
So Anders, why don't you jump on in here? I'm always up for an adventure. Perfect. Because now, with our Kit 2's multi-user support, we get to play with up to 4 friends.
Yeah, they're of course also showcasing the tech capabilities of the Apple AR kit. That's why they're talking about it a lot.
I will have a break. Over here. Very nice, I like it. How about taking this for a spin? Let's just look at all those rich details you can see on the outside of the building, and even on the inside. Yeah, I think I'm going to add this guy. He's definitely going to keep the bank safe. Oh look, my character's hungry. Let's take him over to the bakery. Let's see what they have. Because now with AR Kit 2, we get to see inside our physical creations and check out all the details that were hidden before. Got a ballerina, a little music session going on.
And there can be a discussion about, is that active engagement or is that maybe this more passive engagement? But
Let's see what happens.
maybe we can talk about this dilemma later on too, by how a story starter maybe does not provide the whole story, but maybe just the beginning as an ignition of play, especially when it's with multiplayer.
You put out those flames while, oh dear, somebody's got themselves trapped on the roof. So I'm going to use this helicopter to go and pick up these clowns. I get them down there, Anders. Almost done. Right, those guys are safe. And the flames look like they're almost out. Perfect. We did it. Yeah. What? And we even unlocked a new item for our collection. But the fun doesn't need to end there. Because with AR Kit 2, we get to save our entire world back into our physical set and pick up where we left off.
This just as an idea of how the technology can be leveraged. Well, as this product is not out, I think you saw one or two of the examples that are out on the table in front of the room, which is the hidden side, which is a lot more a game rather than the sandbox environment that we saw on this example, but we said at least a first glimpse of what can be done, and which has also been developed with the focus of not providing a complete story through the game that has an end, but more making still a game, but more an open environment and basically a story starter that can then also enable play just with the model or with the help still of the phone, but not with an end that's pre-scripted, but pretty much open still, at least in some ways still open to the imagination of the kids. And of course, as these products come out, it's also and ongoing experimentation and a creative process that brings these products, and that's of course then built on for the next generation that can then incorporate more of the creative confidence examples. We do have a couple of more examples that are there from the past. One is Lego Dimensions, and I'd like to just point that out because we had Skylanders, I think, as one of the first examples this morning. Meredith, I think you had it, that brought toys to life. And you already pointed out that this has also been during a certain period of time. Lego Dimensions, there's no new sets coming out at the moment, but of course we're also building on the learnings from that and thinking about what can be the thing after Lego Dimensions. For the ones who haven't seen it, and I think we still have the time, let me give you a quick glimpse, because I think it might be something that we can build on after on the discussion.
There you are.
So what you get is still a full Lego set with a physical portal and a lot of different minifigures that have RFID chips in them, and they allow you to bring different characters to a world and to mash them up so that you're creating the lineup of your story, even though of course there's also a game underlying and a story, but who you solve it with, and this can be Batman together with the Ghostbusters and together with Scooby-Doo, and they can be also merged together, and you get to rebuild your Lego models from mission to mission, to go underwater or to fly up in the air instead of just racing around on the ground.
Find out what's next.
And the way to bring him into the game is on this big portal.
Why are there two Batmans? Batmen?
Okay, and as you were here mostly building the set after instruction and then recombining the sets, it was mostly about you choosing how to solve the different models. That was the little creative aspect in it, I'm guessing. Okay, and then some finishing examples that I also did not want to forget is when we're talking about technologies, of course, it's not always only the smartphones. There is some Duplo story starters that are working with Amazon Alexa, so that once you tell Alexa which sets you're currently playing with, it can then trigger the play by asking different questions about which animals are there or what the fire truck can do, and the kid can choose to answer or just to use this as really as a starter for their own stories. Some of the more, I want to say, very literal digital physical connection is this kind of phone stand that was delivered with the Lego Movie Maker. It's already out in, I think, at least 3 different versions that helps with the stop motion movies that we saw date all the way back to more than 100 years ago, right? But they're of course a perfect fit for Lego, and that also show that kids are very creative in the outcomes and even like to be part of a social community that shares these videos amongst each others, as we have more than I think a couple of hundreds of shares. That, of course, especially in the age of GDPR and very relevant ethical concerns, are very carefully moderated, and all human moderated. Actually, there's hardly a different way at the moment, even though artificial intelligence drawn, of course, to really make sure it's a safe environment. But it was a safe environment in this case, and the kids they use this to be very creative and to build up their own creative confidence. And we also do have a huge community around robots, which is around since '99 with the first generation of Mindstorms, and it's been during all these years they're constantly evolving and coming up to awesome answers to different challenges, like remixing different sets together, and that in the amount of building instructions and of things, and also just of inspirations, surpass what we could ever do as an organization just with the designers that we have. And talking about this digital transformation for us as a company and not only in the product, we're also seeing how we need to leverage this community and this collaboration across our company borders. And one nice example, and it's just been out this week, is a new contest that we're having out on LEGO Ideas. LEGO Ideas is a homepage where we're already collecting ideas for new sets, and I think more than 7 sets have been released since then that are based on fan ideas. And usually we're looking for new sets, but this time we're looking for new ideas to bring technology into our toys. In this case, namely voice. So the current challenge is share your most creative ideas on fun LEGO voice experiences. And extrinsically motivated win a lot of LEGO sets. So I encourage everybody, it starts only in October, but I encourage everybody to spread the word about this, or even better to participate. And I think it's one of the perfect places to spread. And I only found out about it this morning, so I just put in this reminder and this link. It's not a link, but this LEGO Ideas picture. So just put in ideas.lego.com, and you'll directly land on this page, and then click on one of the latest contests. Oh wait, yeah, this one it is. And I found out about how long it's running and so on. Of course, the cool prizes you can win, and share the word. And I think it's exactly this transformation that we need to go as a company, of opening up ourselves towards these other creators that are out there to be truly digital physical. Okay, now this enough of the examples, and I really didn't want this to be an advertising, even though I hardly can hide my excitement. But I also want to now bring this back on the final 3 slides to what does this mean again for our design process. Now we keep asking ourselves, how do we evolve this product, and at the same time staying true to our core offering? And of course, it is easy to just throw out these technologies and bring together something. After all, at LEGO, people are used to just combining existing things. But of course, we want to remind ourselves that this should be there to foster creative confidence. Of course, in some cases, it might be more about the fun to also onboard the kids to overall LEGO, but on the long run, we always want to challenge ourselves to bring out this creative confidence. And I hope you could see that in the different examples to some extent or the other. And of course, how can we leverage the tech in a positive way despite the negative noise? And with that, I mean, of course, there is an annotation or a perception of technology by parents, and also just totally justified in many cases, that makes them look at it very critical, and especially of course when it comes to data, need to be super careful there. But of course also need to try on the level of the experience. Of course, technically it always needs to be proof. But on the way of the experience, we need to try and experiment, and also probably be even playful ourselves in trying out things that can then eventually, at least on the experience side, fail. Of course, saying again, not technically fail with any data things, so that's a no-go. And so we want to take this leap into enhancing with the new experience, and finally also bringing out more emotions that are very much like with the Vernie, the examples that you saw, that bring in more emotional attachment towards the original physical toy again. And one tool that I want to basically almost leave you with, and that all of our Center for Interactive Play design team really used a lot during the recent projects, and now also applying this to past products, even though we learned that sometimes it's hard to bring back the context of these past products and to reconstruct them today, but we're trying to look at these products nevertheless with the glasses of an experience curve that will allow us hopefully a bit more to bring up the emotional responses throughout an experience with the help of, like very much like I showed with the voice and with the Alexa interaction, through all these or through visual or through sometimes time pressure. And I think during the duck challenge, some of you perceived that yourself. Or it could be anything that's more of got to do with the musical or with the arts aspect of technology that brings out this positive emotion, and then eventually also makes the physical toy more awesome to the kids. Because after all, the whole Lego name was based on the philosophy of playing well, which means, of course, not only playing for short-term fun, but playing for long-term vision of creating this confidence. All right, and now I'd say let's talk about it. Thanks for listening so long.